I'll introduce you and then you do your thing.
All right, cool.
Hey there! Welcome to Green Room Live. We're live. We got Gary Fast here from Triminator. I think it's obvious what you do.
Trim machines.
So tell us all about it.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm Gary. I'm with Mossman Machinery. The Triminator is our brand, most popular brand. I'll start out just talking about the Triminator Mini a little bit. It's right here in front of me. This is our tabletop version of our dry trimmer, our best-selling machine. It can also be made into a Kief dry sift machine just by adding the Kief kit, so I'll go through that too. But just kind of start out, when you're dry trimming, one thing that's really important is you have the right moisture content. Obviously, dry trimming versus wet trimming. If you're wet trimming, you need a wet trimming machine. If you're dry trimming, you want to use a dry trimming machine, and you don't really want to trim your flower when it's in between, you know, when it's drying or when it's wilting. So when you use a dry machine, regardless if it's this Triminator or any other kind of a dry machine, you want to test the moisture content before. It's the best way to know if the flower is ready to trim, and you want it to be about 10% moisture content. So we came out with this Triminator, moisture meter a couple months ago, and I was part of the project. I was testing different moisture meters for a couple of years. I tested probably a dozen different moisture meters on the market to come up with this one and brand this. So we're real happy with the results. It's under $40, to the end user, and it just really takes a lot of guesswork out. Even if you're hand trimming, it's nice to know what your moisture content is, because then you can put it in a jar or seal it. You don't have to worry about it molding and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, once you've checked it, the flower, and you know that it's dry, you would load the machine this way. And this machine is going to hold about 3/4 of a pound, half a pound, depending on how dense the flower is. You want to load it about halfway. You're going to put the lid back on halfway when the drum is vertical this way. It kind of tells you how much to put in. And then you want to run it this way. And so that way when you turn it this way, your flower is going to be level, like right about here. Let's plug this in real quick, maybe too. But it'll trim, that batch in about 10 minutes. And so I recommend checking it every 5 minutes. Some folks are real concerned. Obviously, the first time they use it, they're concerned about their flower being damaged. So I always tell people, just check it every 5 minutes, and then you don't really have to worry. Because if after 5 minutes you're ready to stop trimming, then that's up to you. Other growers like to just trim for 5 minutes in general, and then finish it by hand. So you can see it's real gentle, it's real quiet. I can talk over it. All your trim will be accumulating down here in a food-safe plastic tray. All your flour will stay up here. And then when you're ready to check it, you just turn it off and take a look. It's not a throughput machine, like wet machine style, it's like a throughput style. So this is all about the timing. So, you may find that your flower is done in 4 minutes. You may find that your outdoor flower takes a little bit longer. Maybe it's going to take a full 10 or 11 minutes because it has more leaf on it. So it's just up to you and up to your spec as a grower, as your, how you want your flower to look at the end of the day. So you can run it in for 5 minutes or run it 10 minutes, those types of things. Your trim down here is going to be the right size for blasting. It's going to be already ground up and ready to go. It's dry trim at this point, so it's not going to have the chlorophyll and the dark color that a wet trim would have, and so that's how we get the great, extraction colors and things like that from really, clean dry trim that has no lubricant on it, and it's fully cured, so it doesn't have any, the dark bruising effect of the chlorophyll or the wet trim process. So this machine too, I'm just going to take this tray out, can also become a dry sift machine, like I was mentioning. So a lot of people are familiar with bubble hash, or they're familiar with, taking micron screens and just sort of sifting, to get that really, really fine Kief that's, even full melt potential. So to clean this thing or to replace the drum is super simple. All you have to do is loosen the band. And we have a band in ours that's actually made of plastic, and that's one of the reasons we can do no lubricant, because plastic on metal isn't create a lot of friction, doesn't create a lot of heat, doesn't have the same kind of resistance as metal, so you don't have to use any lubricants on our machine, and it stays, keeps your flour clean that way. There's also no cut hazards. It's super safe. So when you release that tension on the band, you can pull the drum right out. And this one's small enough, obviously, you can just wash this in your sink, or if you've got a utility sink, or even if you've got a dishwasher that you can throw it in, it's pretty convenient to clean. You can clean it with hot soapy water, alcohol, any kind of thing that you like to use, simple green, those types of things.
Are there issues with contamination of your stuff? You clean it with a harsh cleaner or something like that? I mean, you probably would want to clean it with some kind of mild cleaner.
Well, the truth of the matter is you can clean it with anything as long as you rinse it off real good afterwards, you know what I mean? You could clean it literally with kerosene if you wanted to, and as long as you clean it afterwards and get all that residue off,
sure,
then you're good to go. But yeah, I recommend using mild stuff for the most part. Hot soapy water, hot water, and especially the other thing too, if you just soak this for a while, you can put it right in a bucket of water.
Okay.
Doesn't really have to be anything in there, but it'll soften up all that kief and all that, residue, and so then it's just easy to scrub right off.
Okay.
So you can soak it for a little while, soak it overnight if you wanted to, and that would really speed up the process. So this is our plastic blade, and it comes right out. I'm just taking it out for the Kief drum in there. This is 150 micron, and then we have one that's 100 micron too. That's custom order. If you want a special order, that one is definitely available for those folks who like a higher micron. So that screen is in. So what you would do then is just put your trim in here with some dry ice. You can pick up a block of Bryce or a Fred Meyer and break it up, and it'll be good for several runs. You can use the same dry ice, as long as it doesn't evaporate. So when I get a block of dry ice, I try and make as much Kief as I can until it's gone. That day I'll probably do several runs with it. The Kief kit also comes with a black static-proof Kief tray, and we've got some pretty cool videos online of people making Kief with these, and Kief piles up in here and it doesn't stick. So you can just brush it off with a brush, or you can use a spatula or whatever, and our videos of the Kief making get a lot of views on that. So then you're done. You've got a Kief machine, and the machine can also be ordered that way. We do have some people that only, just basically have a processing license, or that's all they're into. They just want to make Kief, and so they'll buy product and process it that way. And so people will order the machine just as a Kief machine too, and it's just a little bit less cost because we don't have to include the drum or the blade. So if they buy it as a Kief maker, then they can always upgrade and make it into a trim machine, or vice versa. Does anybody have any questions as I'm going? Talking. This machine right here, 2,800 is what it sells for retail, and so there's really no one really has a tabletop, in this category that does what this machine does. It was written up last year in High Times Magazine as the best pick of the year for trim machines, and I noticed this year they don't have any trim machines in that. They don't have that category at all. So we're still top.
You're the reigning champion.
Yeah, we're the reigning champion, exactly. So yeah. Just one of our other products, I mentioned the wet machine. That was really our first machine, and I think we were talking about that before we started, but this is our wet machine. That was our first machine that we made. It's got the spray wand on it, so it's fully, no lube system, fully automated, has the largest hopper in the industry, has a 20-pound hopper. When we decided to start building dry machines, we did a lot of R&D, and that's one thing our company is really good at. Is we're definitely engineer-driven company, owned by engineers, and so when we come out with a product, it takes a while sometimes, and that's the good and the bad part. Is we try and really go through a lot of R&D. So when we first started looking at the possibility of making a dry trimmer, we did the dry drum thing. We built a drum, inserted it in our wet machine, and tried to dry trim that way. And we felt like it just really wasn't doing justice. The blower is really violent, and it blows dry product around. You get a lot of Kief blowing around and things like that. So there were some companies making some other dry trimmers on the market, so we decided to make our own. And this was the first one. It's in the video here. That's our standard dry machine, and we still sell the most of that machine. It seems to fit a large demographic, and I even have like larger grows that will own 3 or 4 or up to 8 of them. I have one grow that owns 8 of them, and they just line them up. And one person can kind of get one machine going and then work on to the next, and so one person can easily load, repeat, and just keep going and run a couple machines at a time. So it's a really great machine. Similar to this one, the way it breaks down, it also has a Kief kit option. So that one can become a Kief machine as well. Kind of our newest thing that we're doing now is Rosin Presses. And we came out with a couple Rosin Presses around this spring, and they've been popular. We've been kind of trying to keep up with orders right now, honestly, because they've been so popular. And it's a 25-ton rosin press. We've got another model that we call the Stack, and this is our patented stack rosin press. So it basically has 2 rosin presses in one. It has 2 bays, so you can press 2 pucks at once, 2 bags full of Kief. And then it also has the drip protect feature, so you can pull it over and drip it. And I can show the video on that too if you guys want to see that.
I had a question. How much? What's the capacity of the machine?
Well, this one right here, it'll like I said, it'll hold about 3/4 of a pound. Just depending on how dense your flour is. Some people's flour might only be half a pound. One of the things is you really don't want to overfill this. I always tell people, the main factors are make sure it's dry, make sure it's 10% moisture, make sure you're not overfilling the machine, and then make sure the machine is clean. You want to clean it at the end of the day.
Speaking of cleaning, you told us about cleaning the drum and the blades. What about the machine itself?
All of our machines are made to be power washed.
Okay.
So that being said, if you don't have a power washer, that's fine too. But when I say it's meant to be power washed, I just mean it's durable. Like it can handle direct spray from a power washer in here in the cavity of it, and totally, it'll just be fine. The only thing that I'm really careful about, and it might just because of my food service background, but this is a food safe plastic tray. So if you don't want it to get cloudy and scratched up, you want to use a really soft, sponge on it or something. A lot of people don't care about that. I do because I'm just that way. But if you, it'll get grooves in it and stuff like that. So this one, what I do is I use the brush. I brush all the Kief and all the material off of it. That's one thing. If you really brush your machine out before you hit it with water or any kind of soap, then it'll be a lot easier to clean. You can just dry clean it and then But this one especially, dry clean it. And then what I do is I hit it with some canola oil, let that sit for a minute, and then I wash it all out with hot soapy water so it's totally clean. Right. But the oil does help, any last residue would adhere to that, and then you can just wash it off. So that's kind of what I do. The plastic parts, the lid, and this are the most, fragile, if you will.
Where can you get the meter?
The meter through Oregon Costa Gardener.
Okay, if they're not local here, we get a lot of people, out and about. Is there somewhere you can get them online as well?
You can get them on the Triminator website.
Triminator website. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, we have them on our website, but we prefer people come and pick them up through the store.
Yeah, you can talk to someone.
Yeah. But
so, and if they're back east or whatever, and they go to a place that's a Triminator dealer, they probably have that as well.
They could. This is a fairly new item, and we're still kind of educating people on the process. A lot of people don't think of moisture testing their product. I could go on and on about it because I was really adamant about this product, and it's helped me really sort of cut out all the gray area. It's like someone thinks their flower is ready. Well, it's not ready until it's ready. And the other thing is, as a grower myself, what I like to do is when I cut my flower down, I'll test it immediately, and your flower is going to be 30% water at that point, And so if you test it every day, you can say, okay, I'm losing 2% a day or 3% a day, and then you can adjust the settings in your room to make sure you're not drying too fast, That's one thing, I mean, I really like to have at least 10, 14-day cure myself on my product. I don't want it to dry in like 4 days.
Oh, so you're watching it.
Yeah, so
going,
if it's
you're
too
like, slow it
hot,
down.
especially this time of year, it's like we get all this great weather, you know, which is awesome, but then it's really hot in our drying rooms, and so you gotta put extra fans in there, you know, don't even need a dehumidifier this year, like last year we did.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like you have to really, so that's what I do. I test it every day, and that way I can kind of go, okay, yeah, I'm right on target. In 10 days, I'll be at 10% moisture content. Get all the buddies over to help me shuck it and throw it in the trim machine, and you know, that type of thing. So you can time it out and plan your harvest a little more appropriately that way.
It's a big part of the whole process. You think about, oh, I'm growing it and getting it big and all this and all that, and you know, flushing this and that. Important as far as your final product too is how you cure it and how you trim.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't think about that. I mean, we do because this is the business we're in, but it's like, you know, you can grow some really great flower, and if you don't dry it and trim it properly, it's just gonna look like crap, you know, so.
Where exactly do you put the meter on the bud?
What I, basically,
The stem at all?
yeah, this, we'll see this little cap comes off, and then it has two little moisture, it has two little prongs, and that's one of the reasons why this one works so great. I've tried a bunch of them that have like longer prongs or different size prongs. This one works really good to read the moisture. So you kind of just press it up against the flower, and the prongs aren't that long. They're only about maybe half an inch long, and they'll kind of go into the flower a little bit. The only thing you got to be realistic about is just knowing, you know, where your flower's at, obviously, because sometimes in a hot, if you got a really hot room, let's be honest, the outside's going to dry a lot faster than the inside. You know, so you might have really crispy leaves, but your stems might still be green, and so in that case, you know, you might need to throw it in a tote for a couple days and then burp it and let all that moisture, you know, wick out. So, yeah.
And when you're shucking down, how much stem do you need to get off? I mean, will it chip off?
Yeah, I mean, I usually like to get the buds down to about thumb size, really. I mean, if they're bigger than like an egg, then, you know, you probably want to cut them down to the second node. You know what I mean? Because you'll have your cola and you'll have your second node down there, and you might want to take that second node off just depending on how compact your bud is. Just depends, like, you know, if it's like a sour diesel or something that has a lot of, you know, legginess to it, then you might want to trim it a little closer. I recommend people do get their stems as close to the nub as possible, because that way, if it's sticking out, it might get caught and frayed. Sometimes you'll see that, you know, you'll see a bud that has like a frayed stem. That's what that is. So, and then that's the other reason why just making sure your moisture content is right is because your stem will actually have a green stick fracture rather than a compound fracture. You know,
So how important is it to get all the buds the same size?
You know, yes and no. I mean, ideally, people who are running hundreds and hundreds of pounds will sort and size different runs. I mean, no, you know, yeah. But it just depends on what your operation is like. If you've got a lot of big colas that you don't want to break down, you might end up hand trimming those and just running all the lowers through here. That's what a lot of people do when they first start out. But you know, ideally you want the buds similar sizes, you know, but you know, that's a perfect world type of a situation, right? Perfect harvest. But it really does handle the small buds well, and that's one thing that people really love about the machine is that, you know, we were talking about this before, you can have a big outdoor plant, you know, where it's 2 to 8, 10 pounds maybe, and so who wants to trim all those lower buds, you know, and most guys don't, and a lot of growers that I know will have garbage bags full of this stuff sitting around and they never get to it, and so you buy a trim machine and all of a sudden you can, you know, squeeze a few pounds out that you didn't even know you had, and that paid for the machine right there, so. But they do pay for themselves really quickly, and you know, hand trimming is just expensive. You know, if you have a smaller farm, I totally get it. If you don't want to use a machine, totally understand. But yeah, people who have a lot of product on their hand usually try to look for a machine, and I recommend trying all of them and kind of try before you buy if you can. You know, you can rent them over at the other location, the Springfield location rents Triminators. Or Mountain Gardener, so it's a good way to go. Good way to try it. Rent it for a weekend and try it out.
What does that run, Bob?
I heard 175.
175 is what I was thinking. So we have 175.
Is that for what, a day or?
$175 a day, and there's like 700 something for a week.
Yeah, there's a cleaning fee, I think a one-time cleaning fee that you have to pay, and then I think it is like just under $200 a day, I think.
Yeah, that sounds like something like 2 or 3 people
What's
should
the
do at
president
one
of
time.
Kief basket?
Exactly.
This
Have a party.
Exhaust them on
is,
the,
let me see, retail price. The mini is $650.
This one?
Yeah, the mini, the Kief kit.
Oh, okay.
The mini Kief kit. Yeah, the Kief kits, it's basically the drum that's so expensive, and these are handmade parts in they're made in California. That's one thing about us too is, we're made in the US, so we're not, we don't put an order into China and get a shipload of machines that come over. We just make these machines one by one with a small crew in California, so they are handmade. Most of the parts are made right there in the shop in California, other than, parts that we bring in, like maybe the motor or different switches or electronics and things like that. But yeah, we're probably one of the few trim machine companies that are made in the US.
the knife. How long, what's the life of the knife?
The blade itself?
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, the plastic blade, it is a wearable, part because it's made in plastic, right? So you can flip it, you can turn it, so you can get 4 different cutting surfaces out of it, rotate it kind of like your tire. But this part for the mini, I believe, is like $165, and it should last you about 2 years. It really should. What'll happen before it starts really breaking down is it'll break out here, that type of thing. But sometimes people will buy extras just because they want to go faster, they don't want to have to clean it too much. But it's warranted for 2 years. So if you break a shear band, if you break anything on the machine, call me up, call the store where you bought it from, and we'll cover it on warranty. So. But yeah, it's really, it's really a great system with the plastic blade. I've never, most of our product, is lab tested nowadays, right? So I've never had a call where they've had, pieces of plastic in their product or anything like that. You would think that would happen, but it doesn't. It doesn't. And I've actually talked to directors of labs up in Seattle and stuff like that where they have had other material, like, metal shavings. Because let's face it, a lot of the other trim machines out there are just metal on metal. And if they're
It's not just the lubrication issue, it's the issue that you can get something in.
Yeah, well, that's why they have to lubricate too, so they can reduce the shaving coming off. But yeah, ours is pretty simple design, pretty clean design. It's easy to take apart and clean. It's easy to take apart and fix. God forbid if the motor went out, it's literally just 4 bolts to take it out and replace a new motor. Things like that. We made it really simple that way. All our machines are red, have the diamond coat, or the diamond plate. That's how you can tell it's a Triminator.
So if it breaks down and I know I'm a little handy, you can send me the motor and I can put one on and keep rolling.
Absolutely. I mean, we take harvest season very seriously. We are, a lot of us in the company are growers, and so we understand the sense of urgency with that. So yeah, if you have a part problem, you can call the Triminator office. Northwest calls all go through me.
Okay.
So I'll be taking care of you. I'll make sure that if you're a customer, you can go back to the store and get your parts, or we can ship it to you direct, whichever is more convenient.
Walk me through what needs to happen or what you think is wrong with it.
Correct.
Cool.
Usually all it takes is send me a photograph
Okay.
of the if there is a say you broke an eyelid on your shear band, send me a photograph of that. Send me a photograph of your serial number. As long as we're within warranty, I'll just send you a new part.
I can attest to that. I got the mini and had to get a new drum sent out last year.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Very helpful on that.
Good. Yeah, I mean they're very durable, but yeah, this side especially, if you were to drop it or something and it dented a little bit, you want it to spin true, just kind of like a bike tire. You can adjust these bumpers a little bit. Sometimes if you've noticed if you're looking at it, it looks like it's wobbling a little bit. Take an Allen wrench and just adjust these bumpers a little bit, and that can make sure it's not spinning out of whack. But it's super easy to work on. I'm not like a mechanical person, I'm a salesperson, but yet I can take this apart, put it back together now. So pretty happy about that.
Are you noticing, like, the colder the room is, the better it trims, is what I can tell? Is that
Yeah.
kind of what you guys noticed too?
Well, anything that can cause moisture, so if it's hot in the room and that's causing the flower to stick a little bit more or something like that, that's definitely possible. Ideally, yeah, you want to be in a cold room. You want to be in a low humidity room. That's probably more important even. But like I've had flower out and you test it and it's 10% and everything's good to go. And then like last year when it was just raining the whole entire month, right? You open up a window or something and then all of a sudden you test that flower and it's already sucked up a bunch of moisture out of the air. And so that can happen too. That's another reason why, constant monitoring is good, because you can bring on a bunch of moisture onto your flower all of a sudden. And you're like, God, I thought we were dry. And then now it's wet again.
So you'd probably work if you could, in your controlled environment, like in your grow room with your dehumidifier and all that going, it's worth the trouble to do that?
Well, just depending on how big you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, depending on how much you got going on, how big you are and how much you got going on. Some guys will just, if you've got a lot of production going on, I had this one guy tell me, yeah, I take the lid off and I take the bottom off and I just set it on top of a tote and I just fire it on. It's like, and so it's like, whatever, and some people never clean their machines and some people do. And I really recommend cleaning it every night at the end of the day. If you're having situations again where it's getting dirty really fast, that's usually another indicator that your flower's too wet. When someone calls me and says, hey, my machine's gunking up, if I hear the word gunk, I know that their flower's too wet. You know what I mean? Because that tells me right away that it's mushy. It's like, it's not dry enough.
So wet versus dry trimming, is there one better than the other, or personal preference? What's the situation with that?
I really feel like there's applications for both. And I feel like, because I know a lot of growers that use wet machines, they've been doing it for a long time, and who am I to tell them anything different? If it's working for them, great. And I feel like too, especially with outdoor, wet trimming is basically to get it done quick and get it drying quick. And a lot of times, in the past, especially with lots of moisture issues and things like that, that was the right thing to do. Like I keep going back to last year. Last year, I had people calling me immediately as soon as the rain started, and they wanted to wet trim because they just wanted to get it done and get it dry before the mold hit. And so that's one of the big advantages. And we have to remember too that like back in the dark ages of Northern California and Southern Oregon, when we were doing a lot of wet trimming back then, the idea was, you bring a wet trimmer to your crop and you trim it right there, and you leave all that leaf and all that trim, and no one cared about that stuff.
Yeah,
in those days. You just wanted to get the flower and haul it out in their backpacks, and get it back to wherever you were going to go with it. So that was the idea back then. Is the trim was not as important. So that's really one of the main advantages of dry trimming, is that you can utilize the trim so a lot better.
So then, what's a compromise that you may have to make, but dry is probably ultimately better? Well,
again, like for large production, people have always stuck with wet trimming because, again, it's more about, I don't want to say quantity versus quality, but it is kind of, they can get a lot done. They can do a lot, they can do 20 pounds an hour.
Like getting done or not getting done.
Yeah, exactly. Getting done or not getting done. That being said, we have the Triminator XL, which I haven't really focused on a whole lot because we're sold out right now. But we sold 30 of them this season. This is a brand new machine for us, and it's like the biggest dry trimmer on the market. So I think that's kind of still where it's going. But the other thing you have to really think about is your facility, just like what you're doing, the whole picture. When I'm talking to, if someone really wants my advice, I ask them lots of questions because I want to know exactly, what they're doing and what's important to them. So wet trimming can still have a lot of advantages to some folks like that.
So, and then, why would I, how do I know when I need the bigger one over the smaller one? How do I know when I need two machines? How do you judge what you need, what fits your needs?
It's basically how many pounds a day do you want to trim? If you're a really, really big farm, but you're okay with just trimming 10 pounds a day, you can still use a mini. But if you need to trim, 20 25 pounds a day, then you want to step up to the bigger machine, the regular dry trimmer, and then you want to start adding machines, if you want to, depending on how many pounds per day you want to actually produce. We have, tier 2, tier 1 farms out there. They sort of trim to order. You know what I mean? They can. That's the other thing. When you're dry curing your product, you have a bunch of stuff drying in a concealed, in a sealed environment. You can have it on the stem like all year round. And it actually keeps better on the stem, than it does if you trim it up. So there's different ways to look at it, different theories. If you want to harvest everything quickly, then you want to get the biggest machine. If you don't mind, trimming stuff per patient or per dispensary when you're doing orders, then a smaller machine comes in handy.
I guess what maybe you're saying is that this machine is just as big a life cycle, just as good and durable. It's got a lot of things. You get there's like the consumer model, and then there's this one. And even if you're not doing as much, if you're doing it every day, it's not going to hold up to that weight, right? Would you say these are like this machine, the bigger one? The only difference is it's bigger.
Correct. I've trimmed with them side by side and looked at the results. The flour works the same. Even the timing is about the same. This will do a 10-minute run. The other machine will do a 10-minute run. It'll do similar. They're really good tools. And so, when someone tells me they want to buy a Triminator Mini, I don't usually try and talk them out of it. If they, especially if they're even if they're a big farm, I may say, well, I'll come over with the other machine. Let's take a look. The type of a thing. But if someone's adamant about buying a Triminator Mini, I don't try and talk them out of it because it's a really great tool. And if they want to get a larger machine later, they can still use this thing for making Kief or trimming small batches. It's kind of, the nice thing about the Triminator Mini is it doesn't have that commercial feel. You still feel like you're an artisan, like you're working on a small batch, like you're, really taking care of your product. And so it has that appeal because it's small and, it's cute.
So does the larger Triminator do the Kief?
The Kief kit is available for all the dry trimmers,
Do you want to fill up the Kief kit just about the same amount halfway? Or?
Correct. Yeah, and the only thing I say about that is because there's a sweet spot. If you overfill the machine, it's just going to take longer. And I don't personally, I'm still sensitive about the tumbling, just like everybody else. So I don't want to tumble any longer than it has to. I want to get it done quickly. So it's all about the timing. And when you're doing the Kief, the other thing about the Kief is I'll let it run for about 5 minutes. And then I'll pull the tray out and I'll sweep that first 5 out. I always call it the first 5 because that's the best Kief. The second 5 is still good, but the first 5 is going to melt a lot more. It's going to have a lot more oil content for rosin pressing, that type of thing. But Kief is just great. I mean, a lot of people just use it directly. A lot of people will, use a magic butter type of a product or a decarboxylator type of product. You can decarb Kief in like 10 minutes, and then it's fully active. You can throw it into a topical or an edible, and it doesn't have any, fiber to it, so it just melts right into butter or coconut oil, and it's perfect for all that, cooking edibles and stuff like that.
Is that?
We're good?
Okay.
All right.
I'll come up and sign off. Thanks. We'll see you later.